Well, hello and welcome to the wrap. This is episode number 59, I believe. I think we keep mixing things up in the show notes here. Thursday, August 31st. And this is a show wrapping up all things Zwift from the last week. We're talking racing, we're talking events, we're talking tech, we're talking fashion, we're talking coaching now as well. According to Anna, it's also number 659 as she changes up the notes for us here and there. I'm Nathan Guerra. Anna Russell sat next to me virtually, coming out of New Zealand. I'm in the US of A, and we've got a good show for you today. We'll be talking about what we've been up to for the last week. We're talking about Anna getting back into racing fitness. We're talking about me in the middle of having a whole lot of racing fitness and what's coming up on my racing schedule. Zwift Racing League nutrition for it, specifically about how to get ready for races from a nutrition standpoint. We're talking about what the ladder league is. That really caught my eye this past week, so I threw it into the notes because it is definitely a new way of competing on Zwift that I've actually a little bit interested in maybe taking place myself. We also got some questions from the viewers. We're absolutely loving that these are coming in. What is an opener? We'll talk about that a little bit. What FTP test to use and which one is maybe best for you? Nutrition as a parent life, in parent life. A lot of great questions that are coming in, so we'll be answering those. You got questions? throw them into the comments on YouTube. We do have some Reddit stuff going on as well. So if you head on over to the Zwift Reddit space, we are answering questions that come in from there. And this week we have the Lederhosen kit for Pretzel Fest, Oktoberfest. Pretty cool to have that as well as the pick. We'd love to know what you think of that. And that's about it. Jump on into the comments. We will be watching for them as they come through, but let's kick it right on off. Where have things been going this past week? Sounds like you've suddenly been riding again. For the viewers that don't know, Anna recently had surgery and wasn't able to do much of anything. So, yeah, I would remind everybody, this is a podcast. You can download the podcast afterwards, zwiftcommunitylive.com, or anywhere that you do get podcasts. Forgot that part. Go, Anna. Sorry.
Yes. What a difference a week makes. I had a week where Sai was here, and then last week I felt like I was about to pass out at the end of our show. I was still like recovering a little bit. And now it's been a week. I've ridden every day, started off with a super easy, like 15-minute ride. I am live streaming all of this now. I made that commitment. Yep. All of it, even when I don't want to. I was like, I'm doing it because
I'm opening up your Twitch right now to see what's going on.
You can see, yeah. And I like changed my front screen a bit to make it a little bit more dynamic. So I have scrolling on there, like, what's my current goal? What's my next goal? Or like, what's my goal of this session? So that people can come in and be like, oh, okay, let's ask some questions. And I'm getting a lot of people engaging and like commenting and chatting. And so it's been really awesome, actually. Because we had the show ages ago where it was like, why stream? But I think, I'm just like, what the hell? Like, I'm starting from like square one, and let's build up, and people know that I'm trying to like get to the top level again. So we'll bring them along.
For those listening on the podcast and not seeing what I'm about to put on screen, I can see this is true. Anna has been streaming for the last 4 days, 17 hours ago yesterday, 4 days ago, 5 days ago, and that's freaking awesome. Good to see. There's a lot of interaction. Go follow her over on Twitch, and that's a great, I love like the follow along journeys that you can do live streaming. That's one of the best things within this whole space.
Yes. So that's what I'm doing. So anyway, I bit the bullet and I'm doing that. And I was reading some of Eric's articles on like good sound and all of that. And I've actually been engaging with the people watching, being like, what can I do to make this better? Like, what does this sound like? Is my mic good? And so it's been really cool just to engage. So I've got like some music playing in the background now. I've got chat coming into screen from YouTube and Twitch so that people can like.
Do you have any cool notifications like that, or like brand that are like? Do you have any cool like when somebody follows? Like when someone follows, you can have like a pop up that comes in. Or when somebody subscribes, or when somebody like interacts. So like. There's a couple of different third-party services that will help you with this, like Stream Elements, or there's a bunch of. If you just look up like Twitch notifications, like they are marketing like mad because they're all about getting in between you and your viewers. So
someone just followed me. So someone who's obviously listening to us live has now just followed. So
we don't have a notification here on this one for it, but we appreciate you guys doing it. I bet you it was sweet. It's got to be either Sweet or Carson Ivany or somebody who's blowing up our chat right now. So
that's been like a lot of fun. Actually, I'm going to get onto that because that'll be cool. And the other thing I did is I found like some thing online, bit thing that I downloaded, and I have like a update of everyone who's giving me ride-ons. So like I have a count of all the ride-ons, and then everyone who gives me a ride-on, it lists their name. So their name scrolls through as
that's
well.
Awesome.
So it's just quite fun. And then I also have like an update of any course I'm on. It'll automatically update like what's the course, what's the distance, how long am I going, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, any tips though from people, shoot me a DM on Insta probably is the best place for how to make it even better. But yeah, doing a bit of work in that space. So that's been his fun. So yeah, I probably sound a lot more positive than last week because I feel a lot more positive. I just put into my training peaks. I've got a new coach who's going to help me get ready. It's actually my teammate, Claire Cameron, is going to be coaching me. And I put in training peaks. I'm ready to go. Like not hard, just I'm ready for like some structure, and yeah. So I'm excited.
Chat is blowing up today. I think we used the right titles or something. Like everyone's like, "What's going on with Ladder Series? What's up with FTP? What do we eat?"
It's FTP.
Like it's because we put FTP in the title. Everyone's like, "Oh, okay, here we go. Let's talk about this." Everybody's got a strong opinion about that one. Okay, so for me, what I've been up to, I've had an amazing race season. I'm really excited about that. Both Gabriella and I won the state series this year. That's kind of like launching into thoughts about what are we going to be doing for next year. And with those thoughts about what we're going to be doing for next year, I mean, you win the state stuff, you're kind of like at the top level there. So you need a bigger pool. You need more competition at a higher level. So we're thinking, okay, can we start doing something national, continental type focus for a schedule for next year? And kind of like an intro to that is, again, to compete at a Lifetime Grand Prix event. So Schwammergone 40 is coming up. I contacted them and they were super awesome. Got us into the event in the pro field. So we'll be racing that on September 16th. If you want to meet up with us in real life, definitely go check that out. They were saying that there's plenty of space available still, especially in the short and fat, which is like there's like the fat tire and then there's a short and fat. Okay. And there's so like the fat tire one, which is the Schwammergone 40, which is one of the most popular mountain bike races of all time across North America. Like I think Greg LeMond has raced it. You know what I mean? Like some pretty big names, world tour names have come. I remember some of the Radio Shack guys have come and done it. So anyways, that's why the Lifetime Grand Prix is using it. And then there's also a 28 mile, which is a little less hard because it uses the Birkebeiner course, which is an insane ski course that's like known internationally as one of the hardest ski races in the world. And then it's also this really, really difficult mountain bike race in the summers. So pretty cool. Lots of like history and mountain biking essentially around this. So that's what I'm training for. And it's kind of like another, like last year I tested the grounds there. I got a little sick before, so I'm not sure that it was necessarily my best result I could have had for last year's fitness, but this year's fitness is on a whole different level. Like this past weekend, me and Brian Motter battled it out again for, in the last 20 years, we've probably battled it out every other weekend, throughout the summers. This guy's the Wisco Disco. He's one of the most successful Midwesterners there are in mountain biking. I think he took 6th and 9th at nationals this past year. He's like, I believe he's like 44, 45. So he's like legendary. And I was able to get the win on him. It was a tough battle. He crashed in the last lap. And I'm not sure if it was because he was suffering. Like sometimes when you're like really suffering on the mountain bike, you start to go a little bit on the handlebars, and you're not quite as, or I don't know. It would have been maybe a good sprint at the end, but he went down. I was like, oh, sorry, man. I got to go though. See you later. And took the W. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been up for the last week and kind of what's coming.
Question for you, Nathan,
Yeah.
is would you ever do like endurance mountain bike, like Leadville or like those really long?
Yeah. So that's the question too, that we're kind of like contemplating because I've raced some marathon type stuff, but the furthest I've really gone for that was like, I've raced 5 to 6 hours. I have raced the 5 to 6 hours in some of the WEMS series here, which are very small, local, endurance focused laps on a course essentially. And I did really well at those, but that's, I've never really focused in on that amount of time on the bike. But as we're doing more and more of this steady state zone 2 training, I mean, after my race, Gabriella, this past weekend, I was like, okay, well, I've only got a couple of days here to put down a little bit of an extra base layer because we raced every weekend in August, right? So like I haven't been on the bike for big hours in a while, right? So I was like, well, we can take the weekend. I rested a little bit into the weekend and it was only an hour and a half race. It was a maximal effort. It was like 300 stress score or something on it was high, but still it was short enough that if I ate a lot, recovered well, got some sleep, let's go ahead and throw some base in. So I thought it was just gonna be a base ride on Monday and Gabby was like, could we do it again on Tuesday? So we did a 3 and a 4.5 hour and I only got stronger, but I got stronger. And here's on the nutritional side of things. I know we're not talking about that quite yet, but I ate sugar the whole time. I mean, like the maple syrup in both my bottles, 52 grams in both of them. And that up front is consumed.
Just drinking maple syrup.
No, in my bottles, 52 grams in my water bottles. 52 grams of maple syrup, like a full 4 tablespoons.
Jeez.
Well, I mean,
it's hardcore, man.
So, but like the reason I was able to recover, I'm saying, is because I was so on top of my nutrition and fighting against that almost impossible battle of keeping the glycogen stores high throughout the entirety of the training session, and the body learning to like recover during the session, even when it's low enough on intensity, because you're in a losing battle that's so intense when you're at that zone 4 to 5.
So
but anyways, okay, long story.
Wait.
Okay.
You pour maple syrup. I can't leave that.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Pour maple syrup into water.
Yeah, so I really liked the Untapped a lot, but like, it's like I could just buy the maple syrup from the store. And so like I got we got some good maple syrup from the Wisconsin maple syrup, and I just take it and I measured out I could do somewhere between probably like 40 to 80 grams, depending on how hard the session was going to be in a single bottle. And also there's an osmosis problem there too. Like if it's a really hot day, 60 to 80 grams is going to be too thick, and I'm not going to get it into the bloodstream quick enough. But anyways, yeah, I put it 4 tablespoons or a quarter cup, pour it into the bottle, and do that with the second bottle, and I'm good to go for pretty much my first hour to 2 hours of riding, depending on how hard we're riding.
And sorry, I know you want to go down the real like specifics.
I just want to brag about my power, like.
Awesome. But the maple syrup, it would be viscous. Like, does it just settle at the bottom, and then at the bottom you're just drinking syrup, or does it?
No, it actually. I was concerned about that the first time, and no, not at least the brand I got. It mixes fine. Like I throw it in, shake it up really good, and it doesn't. The whole thing tastes the same all the way through, actually, which I was a little surprised by. Yeah, it mixes really, really well. So it was, that's what we've been using for the last 2 to 3 weeks of training. Because I was doing another sugar source that's not honey but agave. I was using agave that we had got for like super. It was like on sale. Like there was like. I think the store had gotten overstocked on it and needed to get rid of it. And we bought like 8 bottles for $8, and there were these huge things of agave. And we were like, oh, this is perfect. And we were mixing that. But that for some reason, that sugar was not, I don't want to use the word thick, but it was like a thinner sugar. It didn't settle my stomach quite as well as the maple syrup. The maple syrup tended to settle my stomach easier. It didn't get as acidic when I was taking it in for some reason. It settled easier. Yeah. Anyways.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyways, the long story short, for like the Zone 2 train's been killing it. And I think on the last one we went like 84-mile day on the mountain bikes. The last hour, you do your Zone 2 training up front so you don't mess up that whole like don't go into lactate production, right? And like the last hour we started ramping it up, and I was like, we started for last hour at like 290 when I hit the lap button, and that's well over 4 watts per kilogram for me. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, hang on, babe. And we're like, by the end, it's like 300 watt average for an hour 11. And we started getting into threshold then, but things are going, I'm excited. So anyways, lots of Zone 2 and now rest up and nothing but crazy intervals for the next 2 weeks.
Sorry, there's a bit of chatter on about the maple syrup. We
need
some Canadians to like jump in. But I've actually found a sweet, I know I'll do a tiny bit on nutrition before we go into our next topic, but I've found a sweet drink I'm having at the moment is when I got really sick after surgery and was like really, really dehydrated. The hospital gave me sachets of this like dehydration powder, like how to like get rehydrated really quickly. And I don't know, but I'm drinking it on the bike now. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. Maybe if there's a doctor in the chat, they can tell me. But it's like, maybe I should run upstairs and get it. But it's got like, because my potassium was so low, it's got like potassium, electrolyte, and it's not too sugary. It's just kind of this orange mix. Anyway, I've been using that. So I don't know if I can get my hands on like dehydration powder.
Medical dehydration powder? Oh my gosh.
Well, they gave me 50 sachets.
I wonder if that would actually be cheaper than doing it through
it was free.
Like sports nutrition. You know what I mean? Like, Because is there a huge markup in the sports nutrition world where it's the same
Yes.
exact thing and it's just branded differently to athletes, you know?
Whereas this must be amazing stuff, right? It's like recommended by the World Health Organization. Like I think it's used in like cholera outbreaks. But it's anyway, it seems amazing. Hopefully it's not gonna like won't over potasticize myself. But anyway,
I have like a
that stuff's
queue
been really
of
good.
comments now. Like usually I never use the queue and the queue is just like filling up. People are so
Yes,
on top
it's
of this right now.
Pedialyte. Sweet the cycle. Well, Pedialyte is like kids dehydration, but this is adult dehydration. I had the kids dehydration too, but the flavor was like cotton candy. And it was just like too much, like so sweet. Whereas the one I've got this like really understated orange. Anyway, I'm gonna keep having that because it's amazing and try and figure out a way because my
is this our nutrition like advice?
Yeah.
Pedialyte. Just do Pedialyte. No, this is not our nutrition advice.
Because the other thing is when I was racing Ironmans, the nutrition I had on the bike was Fortisip, which is, if anyone knows that, it's the stuff you get in hospital when you can't eat. It's what they literally put in the IV bag and put into your stomach. So all that stuff's quite good because it's easy on your stomach. But anyway, we'll go on to the next one.
All right. Well, so that's what I've been up to for the last week. Anna's been doing Twitch streams. Well, okay. We got this question coming in also in the chat. So people are obviously really excited about, well, at least want to know what is this ladder series all about. And, you know, I was approached by Electric Spirit Code, Douglas Cook, as well as the some of the organizers with Ladder League, and really excited actually up front that they were trying something new. But I don't think I fully understood what was happening until I took a deeper dive. And there's actually an article over on Zwift Insider that was updated this last May. And I highly suggest going and reading that. But we'll take a quick look here at this and just get an idea of what is going on with Ladder League. It is essentially developed off of tournaments that you do within racquetball. Actually, is where they got the idea. And the idea is that individual teams within a ladder of ranking can challenge any team within 5 ranks of each other. So anyone within 5 ranks of your rank, you are allowed to challenge. Yep. And then if you beat them, you get their rank or some sort of points that moves you up the ladder. But it's 1v1 teams. It's 5 people on a team, and then it's just a team versus team. And those who come across the line it's first across the line with a point structure of 10-1, simple as can be in the point structure. Now, the cool thing about this is that it's on your schedule. The team captains need to take some sort of responsibility here, right? And they need to be like organizing this to find out who's where, what, and how. But then if you want to climb this ladder, the opportunity is just there for you worldwide completely on your schedule within the season that they've set up. And they have a whole, so ladder.cycleracing.club. They got a website for it. You look at that Zwift Insider, it's zwiftinsider.com/Zwift-club-ladder. You should be able to find that, or search Zwift Insider Ladder League. And you should be able to find it pretty easily. And, you know, they've got this website that they're doing a pretty amazing job with as well. Let me just, up front, I'll say this on the Ladder League, that from a data perspective and what they're doing with the data, they are doing an amazing job. And I think they as it's getting going, it's going to, update because, it's very blank at this point, but it gives you who's up against who. Here's all the point structures as it played out within each one of these races. As you can see here, as they challenged each other, they have a world ranking, an EMEA ranking, and who's moved up and down on that list there as well. And then what's really cool is they're actually pulling the pictures here for this is the Wahoo Lacole team. Lizzie Brooks on here, Leon Bond, Ben Hunt. And they are showing.
That's cool.
With these rider cards. And, I think it's going to get spruced up a little bit more here and there. But you can see the basis of what they're doing here to identify the riders, identify the teams, and that team identity in the 1v1 tournament structure, I think, is just really brings out the sporting side and ranking side of competition.
Looks great, Nathan. I've just found a formula. No, it does look really cool. I like those profiles that they have of all the Wahoo Lacole riders. There's just, how does everyone keep up with all this racing? I'm just trying to get a team together for ZRL, and it's like, geez, getting like 7 riders Zwift power numbers has been hard enough, and getting them to set up their like profiles on WTRL. I'm like, kudos to any team manager who has to do this for more than one series, because I had to like, there was like a, like I love Indie Velo as well, but I was like, look, I like have no time for organizing anything outside of this one thing each year, which is ZRL. And yeah, so with all the, yeah, it looks awesome, but man, you've got to have a really motivated team manager to get all of this.
Well, that's
stuff
the thing.
going.
Okay, and I agree, but here's the thing: is I've thought a lot about that. The number of teams that are listed here is amazing within the world. Like there are. I think it's the list just goes on and on. There's hundreds and hundreds of riders and teams that are willing. And, I got to say, though, like big shout out to all the managers, because even within the team I ride with OMG, like there's 1 or 2 individuals who take on the brunt of the work, but they're also really passionate about racing on Zwift. Like you got to be passionate about racing on Zwift. And if you are, and it's your thing, and it's like, and that's your main hobby, like around racing, it does make sense that you'd be able to put the energy and time into that. But yeah, you got some super passionate individuals organizing that stuff. And if you do want to get involved,
Also,
go ahead.
You look at like NZ Bro, because I'm on their Discord chat channel. And I mean, when you do look at a well-organized, well-oiled group, which I'd say NZ Bro is, they will have set up like a Discord room, I don't know what they're called, for this group. And they'll be like, if you're keen, come in. And then they'll probably get like some online Google Doc or something so that people can just join, like who's keen to do what when. And so I think like the well-oiled groups are pretty amazing at getting teams in here. Even when I did Chasing Yellow, like for a few races, I was like, man, there are a lot of teams who have been represented here. So yeah, I guess when you've got a big team too, and you've got like, say, I don't know, 150 riders on it, you're going to find a team to get involved. I guess I have a team that's like 10 riders.
Yeah,
so
and
it's
your team
like,
is super specialist too, with like, you know what I mean? So like,
yeah,
you've got some really high-end athletes who are really spread thin probably too a little bit between all of their different genres of cycling. So that becomes difficult as well. Like we've seen that within a couple of the elite teams where and even with myself, like I trying to stay involved with OMG over the summer, like I just, like if I'm going to focus, I got to focus on one genre. Right. And like during the fall and the winter and into the spring, I'm racing Zwift like crazy. But I was telling Gabby yesterday, she was like, oh, I want to do this race or that race. And can that work for this effort? And I was like, well, I'll give you an 80 to 85% completion rate on what I would like you to do leading into Schwamagon. But I'd really like you to do is a time to exhaustion on this power, on this time frame. And you might get that in a race. You might not. It's a pretty big risk to try and use the race for that. Like, and so I kind of, unless it's a course that's really specific to be able to just, for sure, you're going to get this amount of time and you can like come into that effort fully, manipulate it in a way that you're going to be able to do the effort that you've been required to do it to get that training we're looking for. And on top of that, in a race situation, you tend to use a lot of other zones too, just to like hang on to sprint or whatever. And you end up like just getting tired. Whereas like, hey, I want you to go do some threshold work and I might be able to throw something else at you the next day. But instead you're just blown out from racing, So that's, so I think that's a tough one.
The one rider I've seen who has made it work was Kristen Kulczynski in the USA East division. but it's because she is so good. What she was doing, which was frustrating, but was just doing these like efforts off the front. Like I'm going to break away and do a 5-minute threshold effort, and either
win.
she'll lead and win. That's what I've been by. It's frustrating, but so you can see how someone can work it into the training if they're really good. The actual time I have done it was actually on Indie Velo. I just was setting up my own races because the AI bots are based off your critical power curve. So you kind of knew at some point there would be efforts off the front that would kind of match your efforts, so you could go and do it. But it's a bit like if you go back and look at your heart rate, like it's a bit haphazard, like it's not sort of a well-structured workout. So, and also Jen Reel, I know she'll do her structured workout and then she'll go do a race. So like it's almost like she's free riding the last 30 to 40 minutes as like a race. So I've seen that kind of work too. So you get your structure, and then if you've got a bit of time, tap on something at the end if you want to do it for fun. It probably won't ruin your like workout because you've already done it. So
yeah, I'd agree there. If you're in so just as a little bit of a note on using racing for training, I 100% agree with you there, Anna, that if you're on a day or a big block where it's okay to completely drain the tank, like you can just be like, look, I can, or maybe like the orders are, don't worry about being too fresh for the next couple of days, then 100%, like get your efforts in. And then a great way to get some extra hours in, as long as it isn't saying you need to be in zone 2 and not wreck your zone 2 training.
yeah.
I throw like a few races in at the end because it's just more entertaining. And it just throws some extra end of race efforts in to teach your body to have that extra energy and ability at the end of a big effort. So 100% there. That's a great one. So, all right, well, we're getting a lot of stuff here on FTP. Do you want to move on to the whole, I mean, like I literally have a queue here of like comment after comment after comment. So the FTP definitely attracts the crowd.
It's a trigger. So we've got obviously FTP as a trigger. So I actually got this I've had this question a lot. I've had it since the show last week as an audience question, but I also had it from a kid I train with. I work up at a performance center, so I often bump into people who've just done their testing or people who are about to do it. And so I always sort of have a chat about FTP or how their tests went over a coffee. And I got in quite a heated discussion with this kid who was up there because he didn't understand. And the question I got from the audience member was, which FTP test is better to do, the ramp test or the 20-minute test? The ramp test is where you basically ramp up power. It's a very typical one you do up at a performance testing center. I've done it as well, where you ramp up power basically to failure, and then it'll work out your FTP from that. So it's a very short test, like I'd say 5 minutes maybe. I haven't done it for a very long time. Reason being is I'll give my answer first. In my opinion, if you really want a good, accurate FTP test, it's the 1 hour. The 1 hour, hold your power, see what you can do. But the longer answer is it really depends on why you were doing this. So for this athlete that I had the chat with, and the question I got, and I responded to them with what I'll say now, is that I'm speaking from a coach here of predominantly long course triathletes. So you're doing a 90 kilometer or you're doing a 180 kilometer time trial. A lot of that is mental and being able to sustain power for 2.5 to, in some cases, 7 hours on the bike, depending on how long you're going to take. A ramp test is completely irrelevant for that kind of an effort if you're doing triathlons. I won't speak to cycling. I'll let you do that, Nathan. But also the ramp test will overinflate your power number, usually, compared to what you can actually hold. And this is where I got in the heated discussion with the athlete. He'd done a ramp test and had gotten this power number that I was like, there is no way you will hold that in your upcoming half Ironman. Like, hold the number based off that. So for a half Ironman, it's about 85% of your FTP. I was like, you will not hold that. He's like, oh my God, I got this number. This is amazing. I think I'm going to be able to win the bike leg of this pro race. I'm like, I don't think you will, but good luck out there. He tried to hold it and completely blew up and could barely run. And like cramping on the run, all of that. I was like, that was ridiculous to do a ramp test as that. So I just had an athlete do the FTP test 20-minute. I said, do not do the ramp, do the 20-minute. He's like, oh, my power was like 20 watts lower. I was like, yes. And this will hopefully be a little bit more accurate to your race. However, the race is a race. Like, you're not going to do your FTP test right before you start the race. You will have done it 3-4 weeks prior. So on the race, you can't doggedly stick to 85% of that ethereal number that sat there on your trainer 3 weeks before. So my opinion with FTP is it's just a number. If you're using it to inform workouts, you do need a relatively good number to make sure your workout's accurate, but you also need to use bias. I'm doing that because I use my clicky thumbs now in my game to adjust my bias.
You literally, that is so funny that you have a mannerism in your communication now. Anna, your nonverbal communication has Zwift play in your mannerisms now. Like, oh my God.
I know.
Like, your name on Twitch should be Anna Zwift. That is why your name on Twitch is Anna Zwift. And I'll finish it off by saying, what do I do for an FTP test? Well, I've just got a new coach, so I don't know what she's going to give me. But what I would usually do is find a race course that's going up Innsbruck climb. I know it takes me about between 90 to 20 minutes. It is a threshold effort, and I race up it. And it's fun. It keeps me motivated. I'm chasing people, and I will use that number as my baseline number for workouts, and then I will often adjust bias depending on the day as to how I'm feeling and how my body's going. Yeah, and
okay.
That's
Nathan.
Well, okay, so I'm going to first bring in just a little quick clips from somebody who is much more advanced and been doing things on zones for the last 30 years. He's one of the leading experts on this. He's not on the program here, but we're just going to grab some fair use here from GCN real quick. Inigo Samalan, the guy when it comes to training in the pro peloton, he's always quoted as Tadej Pogacar's coach. And this is what he has to say on finding your zones and what they have to mean. And this is really where I have naturally gone in my own training over time and discovered, like, he's saying something that, like, if you train long enough and understand what you're up to long enough and really think about it and like question what you're doing and why, you kind of figure this out eventually. So let's just go ahead and see this really quick. 1 sec. We're going to have to unmute him. So here.
And for me, it's difficult. I mean, to find find your FTP. Again, we're talking about FTP for what? For 10 minutes, for 15 minutes, for 40 minutes. And then have a formula, a percentage or FTP. I'm not saying that it is the same thing as 220 minus your age to establish your maximum heart rate, which we know that has never been proven and it doesn't work. But it's a surrogate or a proxy that in some cases might work, in some other cases might not work. I rather use more like a physiological testing, especially lactate testing, right?
Okay, so he's saying there, so like the idea there that he's going into is your FTP for what? And another way, so I'm going to use a couple of different ways to think about this. What will you produce on race day? How long is the effort? You could literally replace FTP on this day with what did I do at race effort for the duration of the time? Like functional threshold. So his question was functional threshold power for what? Because it's about time to exhaustion. And so you have how long can I function at this threshold of power before I fail? That's literally what FTP, like the definitions, if you just take the words, is what they are, right? Now, we have within the exercise community placed a presupposition on top of the words FTP or the letters FTP, that means either somewhere between 20 and 60 minutes, because that one tends to be a pretty good definer within endurance, specific endurance sports, ones that are kind of the more popular ones in cycling, about how performance is going to go. So it kind of has become like this badge, right? Of like, my FTP is 350 watts. And that means that I'm going to perform like this within this race, you know? And like that badge then is why it becomes so, this misnomer has gotten out there. Like, and did you hear him? Like, that is the guy who coaches Pogacar. Okay, he is the guy on bioenergy, genetic, like whatever he said, I don't know what he even said, like, but he's the guy, okay? And he straight up said that FTP and the way that it's used is almost like 220 minus your age for heart rate. That is like, whoa, like, wait, like you're totally turning things upside down for me. But here's why it's interesting, is because out of my experience of testing and using just some of those words that he said, so this is a long answer like I usually do. Sorry, everybody. But like, I haven't done an FTP test in like 5 years. Like I don't do FTP tests, but I ride my bike a lot though. Okay. So I'm not saying that's for everybody. And I ride my bike enough that I can and I know my body enough that my RPE scale, my rate of perceived exertion on a scale of 1 to 10, is really, really in tune at this point, that I can get on a bike and go, here's my respiration rate, here's my feeling in my legs, and I know I can do this for this amount of time right now to exhaustion. And like, that's the feeling it's supposed to have, right? And if I'm like, oh, well, I'm trying to do zone 2 to get this response out of my body, then I know I'm supposed to feel about like this. And then I go off of that and continue on and make sure. And then I try and match my heart rate. And then if the power goes to 300 watts, I'm like, yay. But guess what? Like an hour before, it might have been 225 because my stomach was full and my legs needed to warm up and whatever it might be. And I might have produced more lactate at 250 an hour ago and wrecked my zone 2 training. So like, it's so, and that's why he's saying it's a body state that you're in, that you're, okay. So that's like to get like a presupposition here of like, what is FTP? I agree 100% with Anna though. Like if you're looking to test, cause you do need, like, if you're not experienced and you need some guidance about whereabouts to be, the 20-minute test is just the tried and true. I think that isn't like a, go forever 60 minutes. Like the suffering for, I get like the suffering for 60 minutes is definitely really, really, really good one. And I would agree, like go out there. At the same time, somebody who is not very experienced though, Anna, at the 60-minute level probably will overcook themselves. At least I think a lot of times they'll, I think, go ahead, go on that. I have a feeling you'd have something to say about that.
Yes. I think this also depends on, so this is from a coach perspective. The only time I actually really care about an FTP for the number is when I have a new athlete that I have no data on. And at some point, I'm going to have to get a 20-minute FTP, a 5-kilometer run test, and a 1-kilometer swim test. Now, the reason being is I can't just chuck in some watt number into the FTP. All my workouts are smart, and I actually have to know a gauge of where they are. So that is the only time I really care about the number. Now so I have an athlete at the moment who the FTP test, because we're coming into a build phase, we're coming into spring, we're sort of starting to like get a few races on the calendar and we need to start, getting out of base a little bit. So I want to do an FTP just to get a feel again of like how much has the last 3 months of base, change this number as we go into workouts, which are a bit harder. And I want like to just make sure we're still accurate. But they get so worked up and nervous about this testing that it almost becomes pointless to put it in the program because literally it's self-sabotage. So we had an FTP test last week. She was so nervous all day long. She got on and literally just self-imploded mentally and couldn't put out numbers and just couldn't do it because she was so nervous. And that's another factor as well, is that if there's so much stress and anxiety around this testing, it becomes really pointless because you've almost like ruined like 4 days of training with some, she said, because we debriefed it afterwards, she said she was nervous 3 days before. Now, all that nerves is increasing cortisol. It's impacting at what at the time was a base phase, just easy training. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, let's just put it to a number that is 10 watts higher. And when you do this build workout, tell me how that feels. And then we'll work from there and we'll just adjust it. Now, I know there was a bit of chat in YouTube coming through around AI, FTP, which I think is used in Trainer Road. Now, this is the human version of AI. This is where you set a number and you have someone go on and they adjust it based on body feel. So essentially,
and that's why those little mannerisms are really good to have in Zwift Play, because like on a good day, right? Like if I'm doing my SST workouts are a really, really good way to find your functional threshold power across many, many zones, actually, because it's a long endurance of like riding that wave of lactate, like up and down around it. And as you adjust around that, you can get a really good idea of where your 1 hour may be, because it's probably going to be about 5 to 10% less than what you're probably doing for a 2 hour SST or something like that. And you start to get these body sensations, get an idea around them. So I really highly suggest, trying out, but yeah, I'm with you on that, on the 20 minute sometimes. And what I do on the 20 minute FTP a lot of times with athletes, in order to not have that, is I'll kind of be like, let's take a couple days of rest. You've had and then I'll be like, all right, you're going to have 2x20s on this day. On the first one, just give it everything you got on the first one. And the second one can be like an okay. And I don't tell them it's a test. I just say, I want to see what you can do for 20 minutes in that first one. And then, the ones who are in on it are like, are you giving me I'm like, yeah, but just do it as a 20-minute interval. Just be motivated to see your best numbers on a 20-minute interval, but don't start too hard, and make sure you're ramping up all the way through and see what happens. And the second one, it might be 10 to 15 watts lower, but you're still getting good threshold training. So a lot of times I'll just throw it into a 2x20. Yep.
I think that's a really good idea. Really, really good way to do it. Actually, I might do that to this athlete, just FTP by stealth. So yeah,
FTP by stealth. I'm gonna name it. Oh my gosh, it's such a good workout name. FTP by stealth. That's so good.
But again, like if you're I coach athletes who do really long time trial efforts. So the workout for me that is a lot more important leading in is this workout I do where they jump in the pool and just do a regular set in the pool. Then I get them to sit on the indoor trainer, preferably no music, but they can if they absolutely have to. And they just do 80 kilometers threshold.
Oh my goodness.
Then they get off the 80 kilometer threshold and they do a 10 kilometer time trial. I do this session once leading into the season. This is not a repeated one. And the reason I do this, there's no testing. I don't really care how fast you do the 80K. Like you could be doing a hilly course, whatever. I don't care. It's the mental focus to be able to hold that effort, which is what lets a lot of triathletes down. It's being able to, I used to call it my non-stimulus ride. So when I was racing pro, I had one instance where I lost a podium because I just went into la la land on the 180 kilometer bike. And so I got on the trainer and I rode 5 hours at one pace with no music, no TV. This was before Zwift, nothing, just staring at a wall for 5 hours.
Oh my gosh. And
I never lost focus in a race again. So I would see that more valuable leading in than a 20-minute FTP test. Good luck to my athletes out there.
Yeah, that's if you want Anna as a coach, I thought I was the tough one. I thought I was the tough one here. I'm like, oh my. I do want to address the other side, right? I don't want to be like myopic to one side of this though. On ramp tests and shorter efforts. Now, to also give credence to shorter efforts for testing, what was said there in that little clip definitely was also giving credence to that you have a 5-minute power. You have a 3-minute power. You have a functional threshold power for all of these times. Peak power is what those things are. And that certain zones you are in for those specific time frames. And so what you can do for your 3 to 8-ish minute power is your anaerobic VO2 space. That's your space where you're able to do these efforts that have a certain power profile. That, and you can increase those. You can work on those specifically, and that's what those time frames are for. And so the ramp test will just tend to pull from those time frames, those zones more, and not tell you quite as much as you might need to know about zone 3 and zone 4 if you're trying to figure out how to train for zone 3 and so forth. And we'll definitely, I think mostly a lot of times overestimate because you're pulling so much from an anaerobic point of view. And if you've done any kind of really intense training around anaerobics, especially like people who race Zwift a lot, I think they get a lot of this kind of training actually, and might end up with an overestimation because there's so many anaerobic efforts that take place during a Zwift race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so one of the upcoming goals I have is to do the New Zealand National Time Trial Champs. I've realized I don't have the road pack awareness to do the road champs, but I will do the time trial champs. So that's going to be, I don't know how long it is, 30 to 40 minutes time trial effort. That's going to I think this testing stuff will be kind of interesting because you've got to keep the critical powers high for Zwift racing. But then I actually do need that sustained power effort. And I noticed in the duathlon nationals I did a couple of weeks ago, I was a little bit hungover, but I also felt terrible on the bike trying to hold a sustained effort for 30 minutes. I was like, give me a punchy climb or a sprint segment or something. And so I think, it'll be interesting on this journey as I go through these workouts of how Claire, I guess, is going to manage trying to have that sustained power, but then also the punch. And that's going to require a whole lot of measurements that isn't just some 20-minute arbitrary number. So I think we've, answered the FTP stuff. I feel like it's a bit of a triggering topic we can come back to.
It probably is. And we would love to hear your experiences, love to hear what's worked for you. Definitely jump into the comments, on the YouTube. We watch those and we'll make sure to post something over on Reddit about this as well. And we'd love to continue this conversation because it's always, I've been racing my bike for 20 years and I'm still learning and getting revelations while I'm out on the bike and surprises and but when it comes to these things, I think these are pretty tried and true. So a little bit longer is going to be better, and aiming specifically, if we were to hash it up into one thing, aiming specifically at the time frames that you're trying to work on to get a good estimation of what powers you can hold there, and then work on those consistently over time within a week and within workouts that don't overstress you to where you can't continually work on them on a good rhythm, and they should get stronger. And you have a FTP for all of those different time zones, your functional threshold power for them. That general number that you get for 20 to 60 minutes, the best way to test it is 20 to 60 minutes. That's when it comes down to it. So for the long story short. All right. So I want to jump on this. What is openers real quickly? Because that was a question. We mentioned what an opener is, and they're like, what are you talking about? Cans? What, are there beans involved here? What's going on? So if you want to, what's an opener for a triathlete? Let me know what and how would you define that for you guys?
This I had never heard of the term opener until I started racing on Zwift.
Really?
Literally 2 seasons ago, someone mentioned the word opener and I was like, what are you talking about? We do not have that. So you're going to have to define it for me, but in triathlon, we don't have openers because you swim first. And so your opener for the bike is you've just done a 2 or 4 kilometer swim. There's no, I guess maybe this could be it. So the day before a triathlon, what I have all my athletes do and myself is what's called a prep sesh. So a prep session, I would never call it an opener, but the day before you get in and you use all your race kit and you do a 20-minute swim, a 20-minute bike, and a 20-minute run. And my instructions in that session is don't care about pacing. It's feel good. do it a bit up tempo, get into a race mentality. If your race mentality, you just want to jog, that's sweet. For me, like it was always like doing it pretty up tempo, some really like pumping music, get all the like cobwebs out, get all the like mental sort of excitement out, and then you like switch on, you're in race mode. So I guess maybe that's the opener, is a little brick session, a quick swim bike run the day before.
Yeah, and that sounds really, really similar in idea in like what you're aiming at to get feeling good and get the body responding without getting it tired, right? Like you don't want the body to get into a letdown mode. And I'm sure that there's a bunch of, I know for a fact, I've heard plenty of much more educated exercise physiologists about the actual what's going on chemically in your body that needs to get some responses to say, hey, stay awake. Don't go to sleep. Don't go into full recovery mode. Stay in battle mode. There's like a war mode our body has that, you have, and a lot of times you'll rest a little bit coming into an event. And there's an idea of over resting though, too. Like you can rest too much coming into an event and not stay awake enough, and your body will kind of start going into under training. And so you have to find that perfect balance of excitement, but not too excited and not too overtrained, and at the same time peaking. It's that balance of peaking. It can be a real balancing act. But the day before for me on openers is a steady ramp into getting each one of the zones worked a little bit, just a little bit. There'll be a steady little bit of zone 1 warm up. I'll get onto the course. Usually it'll be on the course I'm racing on. I'll do a really chill effort at about zone 2, maybe zone 3, just a little bit on like checking out sections of the course, what's going on. And our courses are short enough. So if you have a longer course, you can see the finish. You can do this like, wherever it kind of makes sense for what you need to know most about your event, if you can. A lot of times we'll ride, like at Order Shore, we ride backwards for like 5 to 8 miles from the finish, and then ride in and do do a building threshold for the last, I don't know, couple of miles or so to kind of figure out what it might feel like in a race finish type situation. But the main thing is it feels hard enough to wake the body up to that moment that you start feeling good in the legs. You start feeling like there's fluidity, all that training that you've built up toward is starting to see that power. The heart rate gets up. And that's one of the main things, is getting that heart rate up actually into the race mode, but not like going to exhaustion at all. It's just getting it to race mode, feeling good, being there for a little bit. Literally, I think it is opening up some of the legs to receive more energy into them too. And to say, oh, we need to be holding on to resources. We're going to keep doing these kinds of efforts. That you've been throwing at yourself, right? The body's like, what is this mind throwing at me all the time? And it's like, okay, he's going to keep doing that. Okay, so we're going to need to respond to that. So it's getting that little bit of response and gets the body ready. And then you're like awake. And if you don't do that once in a while, like it's a little hit and miss. This is a dice roll, because once in a blue moon, I would say though, I'll do nothing and feel amazing, right? And I don't like risking that. I don't like risking that at all. But most of the time, if I don't do an opener, the first 5 to 10 minutes, and especially if I don't get a good warm up, then my warm up needs to be a bit longer or whatever. Then I just kind of like come in like, wake up, and like you got to kind of like blow out the carbon. They like my grandpa would always say, who'd always be like, you got to like open things up, and it takes a little while to get that moving again. So the opener is essentially keeping the body awake and ready to move.
Cool. Okay. So we do have it in triathlon, just a little bit different.
Yeah, totally. So there's and then, okay. One other question that came was, do you have any cool little things for parent life and nutrition? Is there anything that you do as a parent that is eating healthy? It sounds like the idea was to eating healthy and keeping the kids involved, and also like, making it fun for them in some sort of way.
Okay, so I've really struggled with this. So this is quite a good question. So for the past year, just kind of getting through that, I wouldn't say newborn, but just young kids and just really kind of survival. I realized maybe a month ago, I was like, man, I do not know what to make for dinner. And I feel like we're just eating badly. And one of my kids is extremely particular about food. And I realized we were all eating around him instead of just him coming with us to try new stuff. So I actually you'd have this in the States, but I got my food bag again, which I haven't done for years, but it's like, and I get the kids, we can chop and change recipes each week. So we get like 3 or 4 recipes a week, and that's dinner, and it just arrives and all the food's there and it's really fresh and we can just make it to a recipe card. But I get the kids to pick the recipes. So I'll show them all the recipes that are on offer. And I know that they're all pretty good. Like, you know, the other night it was hamburgers, but it was like fresh mince and like all the fresh food with it. And so yeah, I get them to pick it. So then I'm like, hey, Cooper, it's the one you picked. Tonight we're having those hamburgers. And he's like excited about it. And yeah, we just do it. I do it that way. And it's actually been amazing. Also takes the like mental energy off me of like, what do I need to buy? What do I need to get? And it saves a bit of money too, because you don't waste like all the frickin' vegetables that I was getting because you don't use them all. And then, yeah, so that's been an amazing like little hack for me lately. The other thing is I realized I pick up my 2 sons from school and we have to walk home through this bush track and stuff. It's really cool. But I take a little chili bag of like kind of healthy snacks with me so that we can sit kind of halfway through like the bush track and have a little picnic, eat some snacks before we get home, which is where they'd kind of walk in and be like, I'm starving, and just like eat bad things. So now I'm kind of like, I curate a little chili bag, which is, I don't know what you guys call it in the States, but a chili bin for us. And then we can eat that. And I know they've had something good. So that's what I do there. What about you?
Well, man. So we have always made the kids come along with what we were eating most of the time. And I've had strategies to make things that taste really, really like replacing things that might be junk food with the same taste of it slightly with a food that's healthier for me. So like instead of eating ice cream, I have parfaits like almost every day. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so my ice cream is Greek yogurt with honey. And the kids love Greek yogurt with honey now because I put like it on everything that's sweet. Right. And so instead of sour cream or ice cream, there's always like 5 containers of Greek yogurt, giant pint of it sitting around, and we'll add it to stuff. But it's always about the sauce. It's always about the topping. It's always about the addition. And if you have cool little additions that are like, there is dark chocolate in our house nonstop, right? And we always add something that is like, oh, that makes it a sweet candy. That makes it something that they are interested in some sort of way. Or giving them like Micah really likes, I don't know, pickles or like some sort of, like Micah's my pickiest eater by far. And if there's a part of it that he can add or have like an extra topping, or it's something that he would like as an addition, usually he'll be more okay with the total plate that he's getting if he can add that thing to whatever that is. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, that makes sense. And so we'll try and have some different tactics around whatever the base is that there is a sauce or an extra ingredient or whatever that each one of them kind of, that we know that they like, that they can add to it. So honey, berries, Greek yogurt, like tons of little additions there that make it so. But on the other side of it though too, we've just kind of done like this is what we eat, and we don't buy. We like, one of my main things with nutrition is that if you don't buy it, it doesn't get consumed. Your consuming starts at the checkout. If it doesn't get past checkout, it never will get consumed. You will eat what you purchase. And so we're just hardliners. Like, these things don't come in our house, period. Yeah. Like, and because of that, what's the option? You have to get really creative on making sweet things as an option. And I think like just making sure your heart even with yourself that like there's things that you know are kind of just packaged poison, and don't bring it in your house. Just don't buy it. And that ends the battle up front a lot of times, 100%.
Yep.
So there's that one. Okay, zero nutrition, and then we'll move right on to our jersey pick. What do you do on this side? What do you want to do on this side?
Okay, so race nutrition, Zeno, I was thinking about this and I was like, okay, we're going to come from two very different approaches. Like Nathan's going to come from like, it's got X amount of, this is what I'm imagining, X amount of carbs. It does, I have it at this very specific time. And the reason I'm doing it is this.
Well, it depends, man. 8 p.m. on a Thursday or on a Tuesday after broadcasting all day. And if the kids were around, oh man, I don't know. Like it can get crazy around here. So
okay,
I've raced pretty full.
So I'll give two. I'll give there's my ideal, what I would love to do every time. And then there's a fact that like, ZRL, like literally I would come home from work straight onto the bike, and straight off the bike I had to run to school for pickup. So often I would get it wrong, like very wrong. So a couple of examples is like one time there was no gels or anything in the house to have. And so I just got a thing of baking chocolate. And baking chocolate is, as I realized, like during the race, and I'm eating it, and I was thinking in my head, chocolate, it's got something in it that must help.
You're keto. You're full keto. It's just fat.
Oh my gosh. It's just fat. And I just, for the whole race, had this like film of fat all around the like roof of my mouth. And I just like,
this is not a tip on what to do. This is the opposite of what you do not want to do at all. No baking chocolate.
So there was like that mistake I made. I mean, it was not good. I did actually take a tip from Nathan on a show we had ages ago with Alex Coe, which was eat the carbs, don't drink it. So I very rarely have electrolytes in my bottles now, which is better for my teeth. And my ideal, okay, if I go with my ideal, if I'm looking at a ZRL race, my races for me are about like midday. So what I would do is I'd have a breakfast quite early, and then I would have like a second breakfast, bigger brunch. And I'd usually make like a big bowl of porridge. So if the race is at midday, I'd be doing this at like 10:30. So 10:30, I'd have a bowl of porridge with like almonds, blueberries, some Greek yogurt, maybe some dark chocolate if I've got it like shaved on the top. And I'd eat that about an hour and a half before. I would kind of sip on electrolytes during the day just to kind of like, I just like it and sip away. It's a little treat for me. And then for the race, I would get on and do my warm up 5 minutes before banner drop. I would have a pretty highly caffeinated gel. And then depending on the length of the race, but I'd always usually have another gel. Like sometimes I just use it for a mental pick me up. Like I go, okay, we're coming into lap number 3. It's the last lap. I'm going to have a gel right before we start this lap. And that's like a mental go time. Or like on a team time trial, if it's the last like third of it, I'd be like, okay, we're picking up the pace. Let's have that gel. And we'd just be having water. Occasionally I'd just like, if it was a longer race, like those ones that go up epic climb or something, I'd have like a lolly, just like as again, like a bit more of like a mental thing. Like, okay, come on. Like if I stick with this group for the next 5 minutes, I can have a lolly kind of a thing, like, yes, I did it. So like a little bit of reward. Then what actually worked really well is I
Can
was
you
like
breathe with a lolly? Like yeah. How does that work out?
Sometimes not so much. Yeah. And sometimes a lot of the time I just end up swallowing them whole because I can't chew them. And then the big thing I was getting wrong was I was literally getting off the bike and sprinting, like literally running through this bush track to get to school, do the kids pick up. By the time I got home, it was like 45 minutes later because they'd play on the playground or something. And I was woozy, like so out of it. So now what I do is I pre-make a smoothie. So I just have a smoothie sitting there with like some usually protein powder, oats, berries, all heaps different kinds of berries, seeds, some nuts, some yogurt, just packed like a calorie hit. And then I'll run upstairs.
How long before the race is that?
No, after.
Oh, okay. I was after. Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought it was okay. Sorry.
Blend it up.
Okay.
Yeah. Blend it up and then literally walk to school drinking the smoothie.
Yeah,
and that made a
good.
huge
I'm so glad
difference,
you're doing
massive
that now.
difference.
That is so important.
Yeah. So, because I was literally waking up the next day and just feeling like absolute rubbish. So that's made a massive difference. So that's me. That's my ideal. It doesn't always pull off like that.
Yeah. So, okay. ZRL nutrition. So they're not as long as like, they're shorter events. So your load doesn't have to be, this is all going to be based off of carb load. Like my whole assumption is you need lots of carbs in your body to race at a high level. And if you're low on carbs, you're not going to perform. And you want to store in glycogen to your muscles, and glycogen stores with sugar and water. So you need a certain, but I'm not talking about consume refined sugar. Okay. Like, so a lot of your plates the day before and the day of the race should be, and the day before you can be a little bit more complex, digestion wise, because you have more time to digest. The closer that so this is how it works on a scale, is like the closer to the race you get, the less ability you have to, or time you have to process the food. So you want things that are easier and easier and easier to digest the closer to the event. And during the event, while you're at the event, you want the fastest digestible stuff at the best osmolality that you can possibly get, the best ability to cross over the lining of your stomach into your bloodstream that you can possibly get for those sugars. And so you still want to be consuming fats and proteins and stuff, but I would say somewhere between 60 to 70% of your meals should be carbohydrates in some sort of good, healthy form the day before and the day of the race. And you don't want to be eating things that are very complex within about 4 hours, in my opinion, at least for my body at this point. Some people can do 3 to 4, but like if I'm, so on a regular race day, if it's a cross country race outside, which I do treat my ZRL races similar, I will wake up and have a bowl of oatmeal, like a really, really thick, dark chocolate, maybe not dried fruit, because dried fruit can sit a little bit and like take a little longer to process and stuff sometimes. So I cut out the dried fruit. I'll do regular fruit. And that's like 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. somewhere in there. And if it's getting past 10 a.m., it's too late. And my race lately has been like 1:30, 2:30. So like that bowl of oatmeal is getting consumed very early. And then I have like a gigantic smoothie that can really, really get processed quickly around the 3 to 2 hour mark prior. And then from there on, I'm just like sipping on carbohydrates or like really simple sugars, fruit, banana, if I'm still hungry at all. I shouldn't be, because that's a massive amount of load of carbs. A lot of times if it's a bigger race, this isn't ZRL specific necessarily, but the calculation is for every kilogram of body weight, you're doing like somewhere between 8 to 12 carbohydrates, depending on how much you consume as you get more. So like the day before a race, if it's a really serious race, I'm trying to consume 650 grams of carbohydrates that day as a load. And so now one thing to take into account here though, is the amount of riding that's being done and the amount of, that you need for your race. If you're riding 3 days a week and, you're able to do one hard workout, a ZRL race, and some easier riding, or maybe 4 days a week, these loads might not be quite as big, but I would still say the percentages are similar, and the idea of less complex, the closer you get to the race, the better. And I 100% am on board with the right prior to the race, taking water and gel, and don't forget the water. You can't just consume sugar by itself, because if you're consuming sugar by itself, what's going to happen is that you're going to change the water to whatever other things you have in your stomach ratio in your stomach, and it's going to pull the hydration out of the rest of your body and get it into your stomach, because the highest priority is that you digest the things in your stomach for your body. And so your body, the regulatory system goes, hey, the osmolality in the stomach isn't great. we have to pull the resources away from these other places in order to make sure that the digestion happens. And so make sure that you are drinking water with your consumption of a gel or any kind of sugars or anything like that, in order to make sure that you're able to get the fastest pass through. And if you're full, a lot of times, when you try to go into, sometimes you feel like your legs are concrete during a race, ask the question, how much did you eat? Because a lot of times the concrete feeling in the legs is because the hydration can't get to the legs. If they don't feel loose and they don't feel like they're fluid, well, it might be a fluids problem actually, because you ate so close to your race and and some people's stomachs are iron. They can just like put up with it, but it might be impacting your performance without you realizing it because you're still in the middle of some digestion that doesn't need to be happening during your race.
Those are all really good points. I'm actually going to take a few of them. I really like that point you made, Nathan, about you get more. Was it more complex the closer?
Less complex. Less complex carbohydrates and proteins and fats the closer you get, because really it's all less about complex. Speed of digestion.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. I really like that actually. The other thing I tell a lot of my athletes is practice with the nutrition. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at ZRL season now and you're doing like some hard efforts and prep for it, try that nutrition plan around those efforts. So try that bowl of oatmeal at X time, try that gel at this time. They don't need to do it every session, but enough that it works. Like the biggest mistake people like in Ironman and 70.3s, nutrition is called the fourth discipline. So swim, bike, run, nutrition.
That's so great.
Yeah, because actually the main reason people do not finish those races is nutrition problems. So for my athletes, we run about 4 to 5 simulations of the race to test their nutrition. And that starts from the night before. So it could start from the lunchtime before, but it starts from the night before, and then you work all the way through and you just fine tune it to what works for you, and you do not change it. The biggest thing people do, and that's like hands up, eating that baking chocolate was what I did, is like, I'm just going to do something that I've never done ever before, and like fingers crossed it works. So, like if you've never tried caffeinated gels and you go out and you buy a double espresso and you go, oh, it's a big ZRL race today, I'm just going to like try this. No, try it. Try and get 2 gels. Try one the week before and check you're okay and it works all right, and then do it. So don't try anything new on race day. It's like hard workouts. True thing.
Hard workouts are the place for, like, if you have a hard workout coming up or a test race, that's the place to test nutrition to get ready for things. I've got over the next 2 weeks, I have some really specific workouts that are getting ready for Swamagan, and you bet I am having my bottles, my nutrition, everything is going to be aimed specifically at how am I going to be feeling during that race, and I'm going to be getting as much of that done to get an idea of what I'm currently able to handle the best as I possibly can and get super familiar with that so that the nutrition goes exactly the same during that race. And I'm even loading for my workouts to perform in my workouts sometimes if it's a really, really hard workout that's coming. Now, if it, during the zone 2 days, I have a little bit different focus where I'm not necessarily burning quite as much sugar. So I'm not looking to hit 90 to 120 in the grams per hour. I'm doing more like 50 to 60 or something because I've got a higher fat content burned during those zone 2s. But if I'm in like super high octane sugar burning efforts, you can bet I'm trying to as much as I can get through without it sitting. Right. And so that's where you have to test that, because you want to test that during a race. You test that in your workouts to figure out, hey, what's the carb ratios that I can do for that. So I hope that's helpful for the ZRL and everybody. And if you got more, if this only sparked more questions, please ask them in the comments. We would love to go into other dives around kinds of stuff and like different kinds of recipes and stuff. I mean, this seems to be a big one people are really interested in.
Oh yeah, nutrition and FTP, man, we triggered 2 topics here.
Yeah, 100%. All right, well, what's the workout of the week? And then we'll get going into the Lederhosen for the kid. Workout of the week, you came up with this one. Is this something that you wrote or you called it Double Trouble?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't name it. So this these are the workouts I use for my getting back to fitness. They're actually in the Zwift folder, baby on board.
Oh,
So
nice.
if you just ignore the baby on board part, I actually use them coming back from all my babies, but I also use them when coming back from injury or sickness or things like that. So coming back from surgery, I'm going to make my way sort of through these. The reason although it was kind of awkward because I was live streaming it and the comments that come up are like, I hope your pregnancy is going well. Make sure you drink lots of water with it. And I was like, just FYI, like I'm not pregnant. Like, so
Oh my God.
yeah, ignore all the comments.
And
But
it's
they're
called
actually
double
really,
trouble.
really-
So like, is it double
Yeah, I
trouble
know.
because there's like
I know.
somebody else with you actually
my
while
gosh.
you're doing it?
Yeah,
Like
exactly right. But I've always really enjoyed these workouts because, as you'll notice there, like they're quite low. So this was a sort of a changing around cadences, but it's really low stress. I don't know what the TSS was on this. I think it was around 40, so super low. But it's just nice to have 40 minutes. They're all about 40 minutes of structure when you're trying to come back, because sometimes just sort of free riding around, you just get a bit bored. Whereas this was like, oh, cool, I'll do 40 minutes and then maybe a bit of stuff with a pace partner. It's not going to overly tax me, and it forces you to kind of go easy. So you can see those efforts are well below.
and it's
like
a
threshold
moderate
line.
intensity critically at 60 RPM. So you're working on some force work a little bit here, right?
Yeah,
And it sounds like you're hitting in like just a little bit into that like upper zone 2, zone 3 stuff a little bit, and then at the same time getting a little force work. How would you fit this into a week though? If somebody's thinking, how do I use this? It seems like the kind of workout that's not going to like totally tax you, and you could still go and do other things the next day while getting some benefit.
Yeah, I mean, I would only be using this workout folder if you are literally coming back from rock bottom. So another time I've used it is coming back from COVID. So if you've been quite sick and you don't want to push the heart rate, because if
It's like a wake up workout and does something.
It's like a wake up, keeps you structured. You feel like you're accomplishing something, but it doesn't have what like almost all of the Zwift workouts have. Even if it's a like easy build up one, they have so many sprints and thresholds in there. Because even though they're only 10 seconds long, you don't want to be sprinting if you're literally on like week 2 recovery from the flu, because your heart rate's going to it's way too taxing on your heart rate after a virus. And similar here, like I've got stitches around like my thigh. Like I don't want to be out of the saddle sprinting. I literally just want to be seated, easy on the body, easy on the heart rate. And this folder literally is the only one I've been able to find on Zwift that doesn't have those short bits of intensity in it as well.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. And since it's zone 3, 60 RPM, it's not going to feel like you're grinding and you're going to tear those. You know what I mean? You can kind of just move through it with some good fluidity, but at the same time, getting a little bit of that force work to get the muscles strained in that resistance way a little bit to get used to that pedal stroke again. That makes a lot of sense, actually. That makes a ton of sense. Huh. Interesting. All right. Well, that's the workout for the week. You can go check it out. Double Trouble. It's in what folder is it in again, Anna? It's in
called the Baby on Board folder. But trust me, the workouts are very good. They're actually workouts designed by Danny Rowe and Kristen Armstrong.
Or no, Kristen Armstrong. Oh, okay.
Kristen Armstrong and Danny Rowe, Matt's partner.
Nice.
So they're very, very well designed workouts. So enjoy those.
They're super awesome coaches, actually. So definitely, like Kristen's put me through the paces before live on Zwift Community Live, and she knows what she's doing. That's for sure. All right, our pick of the week for the fashion. Well, Oktoberfest coming pretty quick here. So Lederhosen, we've done this one before, but we got to give the shout out because it's that time of year as we're heading into fall here.
Yes, we have done this one before. It's a little bit of I saw on Zwift Insider that this challenge was coming up. It looks like it's been a little bit watered down. Like last year, it was actually doing a whole bunch of pretty intense climbs. And now I think you just have to ride on a course for 45 minutes, so this is like a Zwift fashion pick, but a bit of a gripe because I'm like, you shouldn't be able to unlock what I think is one of the coolest, most standout kits in game, the Lederhosen kit, by just riding 45 minutes. So I'm not sure why they've watered it down. I guess maybe to get more people doing it. But what you're probably going to see now, though, is a ton more people rocking this kit. They haven't changed at all, which, again, is something I wish they'd do. They are going to harp back to the Movember kit where the more you did, you got more mustaches on your top. Like they could do something like this with
That
there's
was
like a plain
that's
white
pretty
t-shirt.
cool.
It's
That's pretty
so
cool.
good, right?
Yeah.
So you could do something here where like if you do it every
So
year,
for those that
you
don't
get
know, this is
flowers
all
or
about
something.
Pretzel Fest. Like that's what we're
Yeah,
talking about
yeah.
is that Pretzel Fest has been announced, and the route details is pretty. I like this part of it, that they have this whole like really cool ability to go out and experience these different routes, within what is Oktoberfest. So I really like that. Head over to Zwift Insider. You can check out Zwift Ride Series Pretzel Fest events announced. So that's what's happening here with being able to unlock this kit. But it is that you do only have to do, it sounds like, rides are 45 minutes long and scheduled 5 minutes past the top of each hour throughout the week. And you have to, if you complete 45, it sounds like you get it. Stage 1, Mega Pretzel, London Pretzel, Uber Pretzel at Innsbruck Ring. That's the 4 stages. All the way through October, each week, all the way through October 1st is how things are going there. So that's just came through with 1.47 actually.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not that jazzed about it because I think you should have to do the whole route. But anyway, that's just me.
Oh man. Okay, so and then that's gonna be our fashion pick of the week, workout of the week. What's happening for the next week besides that? What do we?
Well, I'm excited because I start my new program next week. So I've got a coach. I haven't had a coach in a long time. So I'm excited to get some structure there and some workouts and see something new. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
Boy.
I'm feeling
right
really
now.
jazzed.
So Anna's really excited now. She's streaming all of these on Twitch, and then like wait until the moment where it's like, oh man, this is getting really and like everything changes. Well, I don't know if everything will change, but I think we're gonna have a moment in the future. We're predicting. We'll even like clip this maybe and be like, remember this, Anna? Think back to
You're
this.
Really excited. But I think she listens to the podcast. So
nice.
You
guys will have a laugh about it. Yeah, you have a laugh. Yeah, and there's that too. There's definitely that too. Well, for next week, everybody, we'll swap it up. And my workout for next week, if you're looking forward to that, the MTB Hill Attacks, we're going to go through that and talk about what that is all about. And that is the exact opposite of what you just saw with Anna's workout, because that is a built to fail workout. Like it's made to test what you can do. And I always tell my athletes, you're going to have to use the little adjustments. Like that's what that workout's built for. So make sure to tune in next week for the workout of the week next week around that. I'm going to be training. We're still resting. It's been really, really, like we said, a couple of racing all, month, and then 2 huge days. You can see some of that over on my and Gabriella's Instagram. Actually, we've been posting about it. I'm going to do a write-up on the most recent race, actually, also from Treadfest, because I've been racing that race since like 2008. I went through all of these old pictures, and I'm like, wow, this has a serious history. So going to do a little bit of that over on the Vision website, and looking forward to, if you're watching Strava, you're going to see a lot of 20s and a lot of anaerobic hill climbing work coming up here pretty quickly, because I got to race some of America's Best and a lot of ex-World Tour pros actually on September 16th. So looking forward to some hard, but I'm excited. Like the structure and the way that we're doing this now, in the training and the coaching seems to create a lot of space for the efforts, where in the past I would just kind of always be like a little too tired or reaching too far. And because I've set the expectations correctly and listened to my body and kind of done a lot of what we've talked about with FTP today, I've always got enough space to do the training more. And so like that whole train smarter, not harder thing, I'm really experiencing it in some cool ways now that I've only seen gains upon gains without overextension. So I'm excited to see how the next 2 weeks play out for some more peaking. So, and you're going to be doing your new coaching program. I'm excited to see how that plays out next week. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to download this as a podcast, head on over to anywhere that you do download your podcast, search Zwift and the Wrap. You should be able to find this. This will also be live probably within the next 24 hours or so, I believe, over on Zwift Community, over at ZwiftCommunityLive.com on the podcast tab. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We've been live on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So make sure to hit those follow buttons, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff so you can get some more interaction with the podcast. And make sure to head on over to Reddit if you are a Redditor in the Zwift space and ask some questions about the podcast. We'd love to answer them there. But as always, everybody, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week for episode number 60 of the Wrap. From Anna and I, as always, right on.